My name is Bob Stewart. I'm here in, surprisingly enough, sunny Seattle, Washington, coming to you guys live right now. It's 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're going to kick this thing off. Do me a favor, hop in the chat for me really fast. Alicia Small, Amy, Griffin, where are you guys joining me from today? Lisa Gifford, where are you? Dallas, Texas, Idaho Falls, Idaho. Somewhere around here, I've got my Idaho Falls minor league baseball team hat. Emma Johnson. All right. Awesome. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Griffin, Bellingham, Washington. I will be in Bellingham on Friday and Saturday. Hi, Sarah in San Antonio. Awesome. Excited to have all of you guys, including the ones that I did not call your city out. Dave in Rochester, Minnesota. Wilmington, North Carolina. Hello. Oh, lots of North Carolina in the building. Hi, Alicia in Virginia Beach. Thank you guys for being engaged there. Listen, if you have questions as we're going through here, Justin in Meridian, Idaho, feel free to pipe them in here over the chat, and I'll pay attention to the chat. We'll definitely have a little bit of time at the end to come back and look at the chat. Really quick, before I start, how many of you guys are Brivity clients? And if you're not a Brivity client, what CRM do you use today to run your business? I bet there's some Brivity clients on the call, and so we're gonna explore and dive into some of the tools you guys already have. Some of you guys are using something else. Dave says a shoebox. I'm not sure, is that like actually a CRM? I've never heard of it. Or do you literally have like a shoebox with all of your business cards in it? Sync. Yep, we've definitely know some of our friends from Sync. Oh, look at this. She's in here, but she's gonna jump to the background, I think. There she is. Oh, Dave said Brivity. He's just kidding. His shoebox is what he ends up using because he's not actually using his Brivity at a high level. I got it. Okay. All right, so let's dive in here. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys. And we're gonna talk about some things. Now, here's what I need you to do right now. For this first maybe 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, I want you guys to grab a piece of paper and a pen. We're going to do a little exercise here, and you might need your calculator. If your math skills have degraded over time to the point that mine have, you may need a calculator. So we've all got it on our cell phone. By the way, you guys all know if you like turn this calculator sideways, it turns into one of those crazy scientific calculators. Like, what? I had no idea for probably 10 years. I'd never once turned my calculator sideways, but I want to do a little exercise on how much business is in your database. Like, a lot of you guys have started, like a place we've started on Ben Kinney's teams. We've started doing our business planning. Some of you guys are going to be doing that real soon if you haven't already. And you're going to set goals for your business. And we want you to have a really good understanding of like how much business is actually potentially sitting in the database you have today. If we never added another lead in 2023, we never got another referral. We just what's in there right now. We're going to do a little math. So pull out your pencil or your pen, maybe even kind of, have your database ready to take a quick look if you don't know these numbers kind of by heart. The first thing I want you to figure out is how many contacts are in your database. And write that down. In a little bit, I'll have an example that brings all these numbers together. I'm just use 1,000. Let's say I have 1,000 contacts in my database. So I'm going to write 1,000 down. Now for this next number, I might need to jump over to Google, or maybe I know this number. In my opinion, at some point in your career, you need to have this number internalized, but what's the home ownership rate in your primary county or counties? Now, I currently sit in Seattle, Washington, which is in King County, where I believe the home ownership rate is about 59%. I'm going to use an example out of Bellingham. It's the one I have on the slides. Up in Bellingham, they're Griffin, so you don't have to go look it up. 62% is the home ownership rate. But if you guys just go and Google home ownership rate in, you're in Cleveland, what is that, Cuyahoga County or whatever, right? You just Google the home ownership rate in your county, and Google will spit that number out right at the top of the page for you there. A lot of times it'll be real big. It'll be like super obvious. But in Bellingham, Washington, that's 62%. So I'm going to write down 0.62 for 62%. Now, taking those two numbers together will tell me how many homeowners are potentially in my database. So if I have 1,000 contacts in the database and I have a 62% home ownership rate in Whatcom County, where I mainly sell real estate and most of my database is based, I've got about 620 homeowners in my database. Some simple math, although based on your number of contacts, you might need a calculator to bang that math out, right? That's why I used 1,000. Now, how often do they move? And by the way, in 2023, they're going to move less frequently, you guys. We're partnered at Place, kind of the umbrella company of Brivity, the Ben Kinney and Chris Suarez's company. We're partnered with Goldman Sachs, and they give us a lot of economic data. Like every single month, they're updating their forecasts, and their forecasts have progressively been getting worse on the number of home sales that are going to happen in 2023. In fact, in most of our markets, it's going to be somewhere between a 20 and 30% decline in the number of home sales. And we're talking home sale numbers lower than like 2008. For some of you guys that have been around the industry for a while, if you were here in 2008 with us, it was rough. 2023, from a transaction volume perspective, is going to be even rougher. Now, in 2008, we had a bunch of, disastrous scenarios where you guys were dealing with homeowners that were losing their houses and negative equity situations. And we're not going to see that kind of, economic hardship necessarily for our homeowners. But the real estate industry is going to see some hardships in 2023 because we're going to have 20 to 30% less transactions. Now, on average, in your markets, people move about every 10 years. Okay, there's some markets up in the Northeast, they move 11, 12, 13, every 13 years. There's some out here on the West Coast where they're turning those markets over every 7 or 8 years. We're going to use 10. It's the median that NAR reports in their home buyer and seller, most recent home buyer and seller report. NAR, sorry, I'm not supposed to say NAR. All right, so let's say they move every 10 years. Well, if they move every 10 years and I have 620 homeowners in there, how many transactions does that represent? And then how many did you close? Right? What percentage of the potential business did you extract last year from your database? And then how much opportunity do you have for growth? So let's look at this. Okay. This is the math that I was just spitting out to you guys as we were going through here. So how many contacts in the database? 1,000. Home ownership rate, 62%. How many homeowners? I have 620. NAR says they move every 10 years. There's about 62 transactions sitting in my database. Now, if I was being realistic with myself, what I would do at that point is I'd be like, okay, I have 62 transactions in here, right? Now, by the way, I said, well, what percentage? Look, this year, if I'm going to extract, I'm going to do 18 deals this year. Well, if I had 1,000 people in my database and this year I did 18 deals, right? I took out of that database about 30% of the business, 18 into the 62 that were statistically living in my database. Now, if I was being realistic in 2023, I'd probably multiply whatever this number you end up with, saying, okay, this is how many transactions are living in my database. I'd multiply it by 70%, by 0.7. Because in my market, if there was a 30% reduction, what it ends up meaning is people aren't going to move quite as frequently. Some people that may have moved this year under normal circumstances are not going to move. And so I'd say, you know what? I'm going to multiply that by 70%. There's probably about 43 transactions in a database of 1,000 people in Whatcom County, Washington, where the homeownership rate is 62%. So a couple questions for you guys then, like check in with me. Anybody willing to tell me what percentage of the business you extracted out of your database last year when you actually run that math? I'll just tell you right now, some of the top teams in the United States are still only extracting about 30 to 40% of the business out of their database. In fact, across all of Ben Kinney's partners at Place, we have 170 teams, all doing over 100 transactions a year. The top team extracted 44% of the business, which means our top team, in terms of how much business they extract, still has room for almost twice the amount of growth in a database if it didn't even grow at all in 2023. And we know that's not the plan for our database, right? We know we're going to keep adding to it. We're going to talk about some tools that we can use to add to it. But you have to understand how much is in there. So how do you get more of the business, right? This is kind of the first, this core element. In 2022, we obsessed over this number that we kind of crafted or came up with. We coined it the database turnover rate, and here's why it matters. Okay, in this last year, and this number has been, so this is a slide out of the NAR home buyer and seller profile. It's they called it something different over the years. But basically, they do a survey every year of thousands of home buyers and sellers in the United States, and they report some numbers back to you guys as NAR members. One of the numbers, and it's very similar, and every year it changes by 1% or 2%, right? But for sellers, you can see it's 77%. For buyers, it's 73%. The question is, how many agents did a seller or a buyer contact prior to picking representation or prior to listing their home? And the answer is 3/4 of them talk to one agent. Now, most of the people in your database probably know more real estate agents than just you. Many of the people in your database, especially if you have a database full of leads, those leads aren't just in your database, they're in somebody else's database. And so because we know this, what we figured out, and it's not rocket science, like we're not that smart around here, but we figured out that if we talk to people more often versus less often, there's a good chance that when they make that, they're ready, right? Because as we're reaching out to our database, you guys aren't convincing them to buy or sell. Like, Emma Johnson, I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm sure you're great on the phone and you build rapport really well with people, but you're not convincing them to buy or sell a house. So you're not like a cell phone salesperson at the mall, right? Somebody who just had no intention of moving at all. You're not going to call them and script them into moving. But when they're ready to buy or sell, they're going to essentially 3 out of 4 times reach out to that closest agent, that next agent to show up in their world, that last agent that showed up in their world, that person that's most freshly in their head. So we did a whole bunch of math around this, looked at all of our teams, the how many transactions they extracted, and then we went looking for clues about what led them to getting higher percentages of the business out of their database versus lower percentages. And this stat stuck out like we dropped a friggin' hammer on our toe. It throbs in a database. And it's this database turnover rate. And so it basically says, how many contacts do you have in the database? Now, you guys already grabbed that number earlier if you were following along on the exercise. So you know what that number is. Let's say mine's 1,000 still. How many calls has your team logged into your database in the last 30 days? Let's say for me, that was 100. I'm a single agent. I made 100 calls into my database in the last month. And I have 1,000 people in my database. So the question becomes, how long would it take me to turn that database over with one phone call so that everybody could potentially get one call from me? I don't even talk to them all, guys. We just call them. If I had 1,000 people and I'd called 100 this month, guys, it would take me 10 months to call everybody one time. How long will it take me to call them all once? You guys should all go do this right now. Go into your Brivity database, go into your Sync database, go into your Boomtown database, do it right now and figure out for yourself, how many calls have I made to these people in here in the last month? How many people are in here? How long is it going to take me to call them all, right? In my example, it'd take me 10 months. Now think about this. Let's say I had 1,000 people in here and I was calling 50 a month, right? Which is what, like there's 20 working days in a month. So I'm calling like 2 or 3 each day. That would take me 20 months to get through my database, which would mean this year, what, 40% of my database would not even get one phone call from me. I'm not going to get the business from them unless I talk to them on the phone. Guys, we have lots of tools that can get them to raise their hands. Some people in your database will come to you if you never call them, right? Your grandma, your aunt, your best friend from school. But most of the people in this database, they won't. There's some other agent that's calling them more religiously than you. There's somebody else that's giving them their market data about their house. This is a really big deal. Here's kind of our proof for this. So we have today we have lots of people like this, but in 2021, 2, and this will happen in 2023, this lady right here has been one of the most consistent people in our world. She shows up every single day in her business and she makes about 50 calls a day, 50 to 55 phone calls a day into her database, makes her having about 1,100 calls a month when she shows up 20 days, right? Monday through Friday, kind of like a job, but she makes way more money than if she showed up for 2 hours at McDonald's. She shows up every day and calls her database. Crazy, right? Look, there's other ways to get in front of large numbers of people. You guys can become TikTok stars. Shelly Horsley, are you guys TikTok stars? Do you want to try to amass a million followers on TikTok so that you can put a message out in front of a ton of them and maybe somebody will connect with that message and reach out to you and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying or selling? Look, I'm a firm believer, guys. I've seen this on thousands of agents. Everybody can do what Katie does. Everybody can make 50 calls into their database a day. Very few people are actually able to do it, though. Everybody can. Very few people can do it. But this is how you extract business. We have a massive amount of data to suggest the more you call people, the more likely they are to pick you when they're ready, because 3 out of 4 of them only talk to one agent and pick that agent. Here's her math. She had 1,400 contacts last year in her database. 62% homeownership rate. She sells up in Bellingham, Washington. There was about 87 transactions. Remember I said our top teams extract 30 to 40% of the business? It's because they don't have, 10 Katie Centinellas, trained killers who are in here every day showing up and really using the leverage of the tools. I'm going to show you some of those tools in a second. Her 30-day running average of 1,100 calls gave her a database turnover rate of 1.25. What that means, you guys, is her database would hear from her between 9 and 10 times a year, every single one of them. Now, she doesn't talk to them 9 or 10 times a year. She calls them. In fact, most of those people she talks to once or twice, maybe 3 times a year. And those other calls go to voicemail or end up just being quick text messages she sends to check in with them. If you did that math earlier, my guess is a lot of you guys are somewhere between 10 and 25% of the business extracted from your database. The main way in 2023 you can get more of that business is to turn it over with a phone call more often. And I would be willing to bet some of you guys that are sitting down there and being realistic with yourself and realizing you extracted 18% of the available business that was in your database last year, you do not have a very consistent routine. Now, today's call is not going to be about the routine. We do a call on the Brivity daily routine and what those 10 steps are every so often. And you could go in and Google Brivity daily routine, and there's a video with me walking you through exactly what that routine is. But if you want the document, there's a document we have that outlines the 10 steps that you would take each day. Pull your cell phone out right now and just text the word daily to the number 59559. So it's like, who am I texting? I'm texting 59559. And then the body of that message, just send in the word daily. And that'll send you back a link to our daily routine. And here's why we built this daily routine. Okay. Let's say I was going to do 18 deals this year, right? If I'm going to do 18 deals this year, I'm going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 wins all year long, right? Because in real estate, a win is what, guys? Dave Nelson, what's a win in real estate? Like, get a contract signed. That'd be the first win. They agree to list with us. Well, we probably had an appointment would be first, right? Ooh, we get an appointment. That's a win. Like, I'm feeling good today if I got an appointment. Then I get them to sign a buyer's agency agreement or a listing agreement. And then ultimately I get a contract signed and maybe I get a closing, right? But any deal in real estate, maybe there's 3 or 4 wins in that deal where I'm feeling pretty good about myself. But when you think about all year, if I did 20 deals and I got 80 wins all year, but I showed up to work 240 days and I'm like, man, I just took losses all those other days. No, we built this routine so that our people could feel like every single day there was a way for me to get a win. If I got through this routine and explored all of the opportunities in my database, that would be a win. Yeah, Renee, sometimes it feels like that, right? Sometimes it feels like if they just would answer the phone, that's a win. I don't disagree with you there. So that daily routine is really important. We'll not cover that in depth on today's call, but you guys can get that resource. Look, that's a routine, by the way. Dave, I think, had said earlier, he's in Sync. You can run this routine against a Sync database as well, my friend. There's steps that are very consistently things we can do in just about any CRM, minus maybe a couple of little nuances with Brivity. But all right, so we're past that kind of cold, hard reality, you guys. The cold, hard reality is if you want to increase your business in 2023, and in a market where you have a headwind of 20% reductions in the number of transactions, you're going to have to call your database. Like, you're going to have to call them extensively. Now, some of you guys are like, gosh, you know what? Now that I ran that math, I realized I need a bigger database. So Brivity's got the tools to help you guys, get a larger database in place. So we've got lead campaigns. If there's anybody on this call that's thinking to themselves, you know what, I want to have a consistent flow of leads, and I've been kind of doing it myself, but here's my opinion on look, and take this with a grain of salt, okay? Don't get me wrong. But how many of you guys on this call would think it's a good idea for somebody to list their house FSBO as a FSBO? Like, anybody on here think that's a good idea? Does anybody think that's a way for somebody to get more money and be less likely to be sued? Or is it the opposite, right? Like, do FSBOs tend to get less money for their home and get sued more often? Jerry, that daily routine, you can just text daily to the number 59559. No, FSBO is a horrible idea. We all know that, right? And the stats prove it out. And one of the reasons is they're an amateur. Right, Renee? They're an amateur. You are a professional. You do this all the time. You've done this hundreds of times in your career, potentially. Some of you guys are on teams that have done this thousands of times. You're welcome, Jerry. Right? You've done this thousands of times, and some guy comes along and he's like, I can do this. It doesn't seem that hard. I'll just sell my own house. If you're out there consistently relying on yourself to create a consistent flow of prospects for your business, you're kind of acting like a FSBO, right? You're like, I can go out and do Google ads myself. I can run these Facebook ads. I can. Here's the problem is, like, especially in the online environment, you are competing against trained killers. One of the reasons FSBOs don't sell is because there's a whole bunch of houses around them for sale listed by you guys, professional marketers, trained assassins in selling homes. When you go online to compete for like internet leads, you are competing against our team, led by Amy Garish, a bunch of trained assassins. They sit around all day. It's all they do for a job is figure out how to generate internet leads for real estate agents. By the way, Sync has a team like that. So does Boomtown. So does Zillow and Realtor.com. You're competing against trained killers. Let us help you, right? What you should do is you should just text need leads to 59559, and we'll send you back a little calendar, and you can jump on Amy Garish and her team's calendar, and you can have a consultation with them about what it might look like, what it might cost to have a consistent flow of leads coming to your business. And I promise you guys, it's a lot cheaper than you think. Now, if you want to play in that environment, you're like, you know what, I don't know. Like, I actually want to control the budget. I can't commit to the minimums they're asking for, but I would like to every time I take a listing, get a few leads from it. Inside of our Brivity marketer tool, we have a Facebook ad tool that we've built for you guys. that in some ways levels the playing field, right? You can go in there. There's a bunch of templates that we've designed and are pre-built to kind of fire over to Facebook. Once the ads are out there, it drives people back to your website. It sets them up automatically on listing alerts when they register on properties. It's a really powerful tool. It's probably one of the most underutilized tools on Brivity. In December, for one of our happy hour calls, we will be diving into the Brivity marketer tool and specifically the Facebook advertising components. Mary Kate's, if you guys need some help from us or you want to even just have a consultation, the way I like to talk about our leads team, because they are really trained assassins in internet marketing, but they don't know your market, Mary Kate's, right? So what they do is they have a consultation with you where they extract from you some real estate market knowledge so they can combine it with their digital expertise. And then they create and craft ads that are kind of geared towards your market. Like it's not a one size fits all. I think the types of ads that we would run in Bellingham, Washington are going to be a little bit different than the ads that we might run in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Now, quickly, I hope everybody listen, especially in 2023, okay? Because what's going to happen in 2023 is our listings are going to sit on the market for a little bit longer, right? And so as that sign's out there, you have to have Quickly deployed. So Quickly is our text to lead service. If you're a Brivity client, you guys all have Quickly, right? You can go get a rider made that says, hey, text Ben Kinney to 59559 to find out the price and see all the photos of this property. Instead of having flyers out there, we can reduce that cost, right? And we can get leads when somebody wants information about our property. Get this done soon, guys. If you have any questions about this, reach out to our support team. They can help. They can give you a place to go and get your signs ordered if you need that. They can help you get a sign design. Like, please get Quickly out. These are some of the best leads in real estate. Like, imagine if everybody that drove by the front of your house and jumped out and grabbed a flyer. What if when they were grabbing the flyer, you could snag their cell phone number? That's what Quickly is. It's also in 2023, as it gets harder to sell houses and houses sit on the market for longer, right? Sometimes sellers in that neighborhood are gonna go, I wonder what my neighbor's house is listed for. And they're paying attention to which real estate agents are getting houses sold in the area. And if you can get that house sold and you had some seller that texted in about it, right? Quickly generates seller leads too. Now, buyer leads are kind of its sweet spot because it sits out in front of your listing and people can drive by and you can trade information about the property for your cell phone. Super important tool for you guys to get into play. Every listing you have out there, there's a couple leads a month that you're missing out on if you're using flyers out at that property instead of a Quickly sign. Now, listings are going to sit on longer. Our sellers are going to expect us to do a little bit more in 2021 and 2. A lot of us didn't have to do open houses because the house sold in the first weekend. Not going to happen in 2023, right? We're going to be out there doing a few more open houses. And so we've got these open house registration tools built into your website where on location, you guys can pull up your laptop or an iPad or something and people can sign in, or you can do it with a QR code. We've got in Brivity Marketer a way you can introduce your open house registration pages through QR codes. So you could print out 4 or 5 of those, just a page with a QR code on it, one on the front door, one in a couple strategic places around the home. And as people are going through, you're asking them to sign in, they can shoot that QR code and sign in right from their own phone. These like, if you've ever found an old notepad at your desk, 2 weeks later that had a bunch of sign-in names on it, right? Or that piece of paper you printed out, then you lost it afterwards, or you couldn't understand the writing they'd written on that. Use these, guys. It'll feed those leads automatically into the CRM. We can fire auto plans off of those people automatically after that. We can do things like listing alerts automatically to them. It's a really powerful tool to make you just a little bit more efficient when you're out there doing those open houses. You don't want to waste that time. If you take 30 minutes to come home and type everybody's name into the database, that's 30 minutes you could have had on the phone, making a couple extra phone calls, right? Now, once we have that consistent flow, and Brivity's got lots of tools to help you keep a consistent flow, whether you're doing it yourself, some of those things, right? Or whether you're engaging our leads team to help you keep a consistent flow. Now we have to nurture those people, right? A lot of you guys have leads in your database right now that you could be potentially nurturing even better. But when they come in 2023, we're going to need to nurture them. It's very, very rare that somebody just pops up in the database today and is looking to buy a house this weekend. Auto plans. If you're a Brivity client today, you can go into our help center and just do a search for auto plan library, and there's a whole bunch of auto plans there that you guys can pick from. It's any plans we use in Ben Kinney's businesses. So he partners with 170 top teams around the country, doing somewhere between 100 and 2,200. I think our top team does 2,200 deals. We'll give you their auto plans, right? We'll give you our 10 days of pain that we use to convert internet leads. We'll give you the Facebook version of that thing. We'll give you our open house plan. If we have a plan, it's yours. If anybody in Brivity has a plan, you can easily share them with each other. We make sure in our business that all of our lead sources have some kind of a defined communication auto plan that makes sure when they come in, doesn't matter if they come in at 7:30 tonight and I'm out having dinner with my wife and boys, they're going to get communication from us, right? If we know that increased communication leads to increased conversions, we got to make sure, and we do know this, right? We got to make sure everybody's getting communication. And if you don't know what to say to them or send to them, reach out to us. We've got a plan for you. Listing alerts, everybody. Look, if you have a date, here's what we do. On our 170 place teams, every one of them is at 50% coverage on the database with a listing alert. Every single one. Why? Here's why. Look, a lot of people go, I don't know what kind of houses to send them. I don't even know if they're looking for houses anymore. This lead's 4 years old. Like they probably don't want listings from me. Here's why we send listing alerts to everybody, because we think people like looking at houses. And here's our proof to that. Every month on Zillow, Realtor.com, and Trulia, there's over 100 million visitors on those three websites. Do you guys know how many houses sell all year? All year. And I'm talking every month, 100 million people show up on Zillow, Trulia, and Realtor.com to look at real estate. 5 million house, 5.5 million in a normal year. This year, it's going to be like 4.2 million. In 2023, 4.2 million homes are going to sell, but 100 million people are still going to show up on Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com. There's hundreds of millions that go to our websites and to the portals every single month, you guys. So if we know just kind of intuitively that, wow, way more people look for houses and look at houses than buy or sell houses every year, let's make sure they do it on our sites. If they're in our database, let's give them an easy way or a path to get back to our site to look at real estate, even if they're not thinking about it today. Because that person that's not thinking about it today, Mikkel, when they decide, okay, honey, I think we're going to do this. I think we're finally going to sell this place. The boys are all out of the house now. Let's downsize. When they make that decision, it's going to be one agent, right? And you'll have had a better chance if during that time you were sending them properties, maybe even if it was just once a week, right? Hey, here's what's happening around the area. Here's some of the new houses out there. So we get them on if we have a buyer lead or even a prospect in the database, we're like, I don't even know where this came from. This thing's been in here for 7 years. Like, I have no source on it. I have no idea. Cool, listing alert. You don't know what to send them? Everybody needs to have a generic one for your market. So up in Bellingham, our generic is Bellingham, Washington, 400 to 600,000. Might have extended a little bit in the last year, 400 to 700,000. My mom sells in a market where there's two predominant cities, Tacoma and Olympia. There's lots of other cities around, Lacey and Lakewood and on and on and on. She just does Tacoma and Olympia, 300 to 600,000. Go. If we know nothing about them, we get them something. Sometimes they'll tell us, hey, you know what? Can you add Lacey in here? We want to see what's happening in Lacey too. Then we need market reports, guys. All of our databases, over 50% coverage with a market report. Now, if they have an address and an email, we get a market report about what's happening around their house, and there's a bulk tool in Brivity to do that. You can go in and 50 at a time, you can set it up, and we've got this algorithm that we use to determine what's the best radius to set the report up so that they get a good report that shows them a nice amount of data about what's happening near where they live. We also do market reports on buyers. So if I have somebody set up on a listing alert, showing them all the new properties hitting the market in Bellingham between 400 and 600,000, they're going to get a market report sending out to them once a week that shows them what's happening in Bellingham, Washington between 400 and 600,000. I want them to know, like, the listing alert gives them the new listing. Here's another new listing. Here's a new listing. Here's one that had its price reduced. There'll be a bunch of those in 2023. Those go out in listing alerts. But the market report says, here's what happened to those houses I've been selling you, or I've been sending you a listing alert. Remember that one I sent you 2 months ago and you kind of thought you liked it a little bit? Sorry, it's pending now. Remember the one a couple months ago we sent you that you loved? That one sold, and here's the price that it sold for. So we make sure our buyers are educated about what's happening in that same market that we're sending them properties where maybe they're going to buy. Super powerful tool. Now, once we have people coming back to our website from those listing alerts, or we have people from our lead programs showing up and looking at properties on the website, then we can retarget them. So our leads team can help you guys get leads. They can also help you, like, I don't know, I'm looking under my desk here because I generally have a couple pairs of shoes. I have a problem. I have a shoe problem. And the internet has figured out I have a shoe problem. And so they follow me around, like the marketers at Nike, the marketers at Adidas, the marketers at, StockX, right? They follow me around the internet. They're like, you should buy shoes. Hey, what about this pair? Hey, we saw you were on Foot Locker yesterday looking at this pair. Here it is again. Here's another pair that looks kind of like that pair. We can do the same thing for you guys with your database with properties, right? If they're on your website looking at properties, we can start following them around the internet, showing them properties similar to the one they've been looking at on your website. Hey, we saw you on Griffin's website looking at a property in Bellingham at 450,000. What do you think of this one over here in Ferndale at 485? What do you think of this one in Blaine at 390? What do you think of this one out in Sudden Valley at 425? Right? We can continue to stay in front of that person when you're asleep and they're up on Facebook scrolling at midnight. And then look, out of all of that stuff that you might be doing in the day, right? We might be retargeting them, getting them to come back. We might have listing alerts, drawing them back to properties on the website. We might have them looking at market reports. We have to be able to go into the database and spot those people. And one of the steps in the daily routine, in fact, two of the steps are very particular to this concept, right? Of going in to your database and calling the right person, Jerry, at the right time. Right? Calling the person today that was on my website earlier this morning. Calling the person today that had been poking on my market report, every day for the last 3 days. Right? Calling the person today that just favorited a property 10 seconds ago on the site. We have to be able to spot the signals in our database, and we have to take action on the signals. Right? Somebody replies to a text message that one of our auto plans drums up. And when I get the reply, like in real time, I'm with another client. And so I tuck it in my back pocket thinking, I'll get to that later, but do I have a really good way to get to that later? Right? Our daily routine helps you with that. The dashboard on Brivity helps you with these things, helps to give you insights to tell you, what should I do right now? Who should I call? Really important. Now, to me, there's really one dominant secret weapon in your database, and it's the dialer. And I'll tell you guys this, right? I've looked in thousands of databases in my career. I've probably looked in 100 databases this month. Okay. I have never seen somebody make over 500 calls in a database when they're manually logging calls. And we track that in Brivity. You can go into you can make a bunch of calls on your cell phone and manually log them in here. And we have agents that do that. We have lots of agents that do it that way. Right? They go, well, these people aren't going to know if I call from the Brivity number. They know my phone number. The reality is most people in your database don't have you in their phone. They don't have your number. So it really doesn't matter. But they go, I don't know. I like, here's what happens every time you make a phone call on your phone, right? You make the phone call, you log it in Brivity, you go to make the next phone call, and that stupid phone screen has a million things trying to get you to not make that next call, right? They're like, oh, instead of making that next call, you could answer these 5 text messages that came in recently. And you're like, oh yeah, I should do that. And then they're like, what about this Facebook message? And here's a news notification. And oh my gosh, did you see the crazy news that happened? There are 100 things on here trying to distract you from making the next phone call into your real estate business. And most of us let it happen. What a lot of people in our world have figured out is the dialer is a secret weapon more than anything because it keeps you focused. You can go in and start a dialer session in Brivity to make 50 dials, and literally it'll just dial the next person, dial the next person, dial the next person, and it'll save you all those distractions. We call that the flow state. Chris Suarez, our co-founder, he calls being on the dialer getting into the flow state, which is I can make a much higher volume of phone calls into my business if I eliminate the distractions of doing it on my phone. So guys, 500 is the most calls you could make in a month into your database, dialing it on your phone. I've seen thousands of databases. I've never seen somebody do more than that. There are, in our place world, there's 25 people that make over 1,000 calls a month using the dialer. There's like 5 today that are making over 2,000. And there's one lady recently that in the last 30 days has made 3,000 phone calls into her database. These are all people that are going to have kick-ass 2023s, regardless of the 20% reduction in the market, because there's still going to be 4.2 to 4.4 million houses that sell, and they're going to get their hands on lots of them. Why? Because they're trying to reach those people at really high volumes, and the secret weapon of doing that is the Brivity dialer. Learn it, love it, lean into it. I have yet to see somebody that consistently here's the thing about making phone calls in your business. So this is a mindset type of a conversation really quick, but if you do it for a day, if you were really aggressive one day, made 500 calls in your database in one day, which would be crazy, right? But we've seen it happen. It wouldn't change your business. Maybe you'd find an appointment or two, but it wouldn't change your business. If you did it every day for a week, it wouldn't change your business. And if you did it every day for a month, it still wouldn't change your business. This is the hardest part about real estate, right? People go, oh, they said if I just kept calling, then it would lead to more business, but not for just a month. It has to be a consistent approach over a long period of time. And the reason I say everybody can do it, but very few people actually do it, but everybody can. A lot of people can do it for a week. They can even do it for a month, but they don't have the belief or the buy-in that if they did it all year, it would dramatically change your life. We have plenty of examples. Katie Sentinel, the lady I showed you earlier that extracted 60% of her business and did 52 deals and made almost $300,000. She's changing her life on the back of consistently showing up for 2 hours every day in her database. And every single person on this call could do it. Now, once we get the listing, we've got to consistently market and manage the pendings on those things, right? Because we want to wow our sellers, even if it takes a little bit longer in 2023 to get their house sold, we still want to wow them. And the number one complaint that sellers have about real estate agents, when you go back to that NAR home buyer and seller profile, is a lack of communication. So look, a lot of you guys are really good at the marketing that you do, but sometimes it gets inconsistent. Sometimes you use Canva and it just takes a bunch of time to upload the photos every time to Canva. So we built Brivity Marketer for you guys so you could have consistent, beautiful marketing with all of the data feeding in from the MLS. So you never had to upload another photo for a flyer or a social media post. So we can do postcards out of there. We can direct mail, right? We can do flyers and print all sorts of different variations of templates for flyers and print. There's for a couple hundred social media designs that you guys can use for different social media, whether that be posting or stories or whatever it is. Beautiful marketing on Brivity Marketer in just a couple clicks. Again, in our happy hour, one of them in December, we do those Wednesdays, actually right after this call, we're going to cover Brivity Marketer in depth. It's a really powerful tool. Now, transaction auto plans, right? To make sure every customer that you do business with gets a very similar experience as you're listing their house, and to make sure everybody on the team knows whose job it is to do what. Smart transaction auto plans help you make sure everything gets done, but it also communicates everything you're doing back to the client. And, you know, one of the key aspects of Brivity is that transaction portal where you can invite your client in to see and have access and visibility to all the things that you guys promised them at the kitchen table when you got them to sign that listing agreement, all the marketing you were going to do, all the stuff that you said you were going to do, right? This communicates all that stuff you do back to them. Now, this becomes really important during a transaction, right? Because look, most of the work that you guys do in real estate happens like once the purchase and sales agreement's been signed, and a lot of that work happens kind of behind the scenes, and they don't know all the work you guys put in to actually get these things across the finish line. We can help you communicate that to them, and we've got a whole bunch of plans kind of already built that you guys can riff off of and kind of add your own nuances to. Now, all these things in one system, there's 15 things we didn't talk about today that Brivity does at a really high level as well. Here's what I need you guys to do. So I'm gonna hop out of here for just a second. I'm actually gonna take us back up because I really want you guys to get your hands on that daily routine. And so I'm gonna leave the slide here. But as you're leaving today, okay, we're going to give a $50 gift card to one of you guys that's in the room right now. And all I need you to do is fill out the little survey at the end. So when you close the Zoom down, you hop out of here, I close it down, this little survey is going to pop up on your screen there. It'd mean the world to me if you guys could fill that out really fast. And then we'll grab one of you guys and we'll shoot you a $50 gift card. I think it's like a little, a Visa gift card or something like that. If you do that for me, I'd really appreciate it. So let's find that routine slide really quick. So, all right, let me make sure I didn't miss any questions from any of you guys. Copy, yeah, Dave, we'll get you the recording, my friend. Anybody that was on here either showed up or missed, wanted to show up but didn't get a chance. Jerry, here's your text to get that daily routine. And then if you need leads, guys, if you need leads, you can text need leads to that same number, 59559, and it'll send you back a link to Amy Garish and her team's calendar where you guys can go have a consultation about what it might look like to have a consistent flow of prospects in your business in 2023. Listen, guys, my name is Bob Stewart. I'm going to leave you with my email address, bob@benkinney. I put it in the I didn't put it to everybody, though. Let me try that again. Everyone. There we go. bob@benkinney.com is my email if you guys want to reach out to me. And there's not too many of you on here, so I'm not too scared to do this. Here's my cell phone number, guys. If anybody wants to give me a call, I'll tell you what I do around here at Brivity, kind of beyond this kind of thing. I work with Ben Kinney's place teams every single day. So right when I hop off this call, I'm going to hop on with our team in Missoula, Montana, and we go through how they leverage and utilize their Brivity platform. And we have a very systematic way that we do that with those teams. If you're interested in something like that for yourself, reach out to me, you guys. I'll set you up with one of our success team. You guys all have one of those people assigned to you, but I can connect you with your specific one if you want. And they can set up half hour, an hour with you where they go through and they'll look in your Brivity and they'll give you some suggestions of things that you guys maybe are missing, some opportunities you could capitalize on, some things you could do better. But they'll spend some dedicated time with you. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to show up to learn a little bit more about Brivity if you're already a Brivity client. If you're not a Brivity client, we're showcasing to you some of the cool tools that Brivity offers. Reach out if you have specific questions about Brivity. Reach out if you're already a Brivity client and you'd like to connect with somebody on our team to, to learn a little bit more or to just help you get a little bit deeper into the system. Because here's the deal, guys. In 2023, if you want to grow your business, you're going to have to leverage the tools that you have at your disposal, and you're going to have to do it at a high level, and our team can help you with that. So Neela, the cost for joining Brivity on there's a range, okay? And depending on how big your team is, it could be anywhere as low as like $199 a month. And some of the really large teams who have 15 seats and lots of data usage and all this stuff, they can run up to $1,000 a month for a really, really big team like that. But so there's a range of pricing. Neela, Ben's idea when we built Brivity is he wanted to build it so that it could be affordable to everybody, but that as people grew their business and needed more resources, we could help them grow their business. So we have lots of single agents that use Brivity. And then of course we've got lots of teams that leverage it at a really high level. I think as a single agent, it could go as low as $99 a month. There's an option for that, Neela. And then as you go up, you start to add more and more of the tools. If Neil, I can have Connor, one of the team, reach out to you and chat about it really quick if you'd like. Okay, Zoe, could you take a quick note to have somebody reach out to Neela and connect with them on pricing? All right. Awesome. Zoe's gonna get you hooked up there, Neela. Listen, you guys have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. I really appreciate your time today and taking 50 minutes out of your day to dive in with me. Griffin, it's my pleasure, my friend. Maybe I'll see you up in Bellingham on Friday when I'm in town. Otherwise, you guys have an awesome, Christina, have an awesome rest of your week, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Joanna, Dave, JC, Melissa, thank you guys. Bye-bye, everybody.